There was nothing special about that day. No milestone. No celebration. Just me, my child, and a tired version of myself trying to hold everything together. I was standing in line at the pharmacy, holding my toddler who had just finished crying from sheer exhaustion. My shirt had spit up stains, my eyes were swollen from a night with no sleep, and my thoughts were racing with everything I still had to do. People passed by, looked through me, around me, but never at me. That had become my normal. Invisible. Present everywhere, but seen by no one. Not as a woman. Not even as a person. Just a function. A diaper changer. A bottle warmer. A never-tired machine. I didn't expect anything to be different that day. I wasn't hoping for kindness or even a smile. I just wanted to get home. But then, a woman behind me in line gently touched my arm. She said softly, "You're doing such a good job." That's it. Just that. My throat tightened. I nodded, afraid that if I opened my mouth, I'd start crying right there between the baby wipes and cold medicine. I wasn't used to being seen, especially not with softness. And somehow, that one sentence cracked something open inside me. Because she didn't say it like she pitied me. She said it like she recognized me. Like she knew the weight I was carrying. Like she had carried it too. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt human. I felt like a mother whose effort mattered. Like I was more than just surviving. And that one moment, it carried me through weeks. They say motherhood is beautiful, that it's a blessing. And it is. But what they don't tell you is how lonely it can feel, especially when no one sees you anymore. After I became a mom, the world stopped asking how I was doing. They asked about the baby. They asked if he was sleeping, eating, growing. They didn't ask if I was. There were days I felt like I was disappearing in plain sight. I'd walk into rooms and feel like furniture, there to serve a purpose, not to be cared for. Even in my closest circles, I'd hear things like, "Wow, you're such a natural," or, "You make it look easy." But I wasn't. And it wasn't. What I really wanted was someone to see behind the smile I forced. To notice the way I flinched at loud sounds because I was so sleep-deprived. To see how I paused before answering simple questions because my brain was foggy from postpartum anxiety. To ask me if I was eating or sleeping or holding up okay. Instead, I became the background. The one holding the diaper bag. The one taking the photos but never in them. The one awake at 3 a.m. Googling, "Is it normal to feel like I don't know who I am anymore?" I remember one afternoon, I had barely eaten, I was still in the same clothes from the night before, and my baby was screaming without pause. I sat on the floor of the laundry room and cried into a pile of clean clothes. Not because of one big thing, but because I felt like I was vanishing. I didn't want praise. I didn't need a parade. I just wanted someone to look at me and say, "I see you." Not just the mother. You. Because the truth is, I hadn't stopped being me. I was still in there somewhere. Underneath the exhaustion. Behind the resilience. Buried under layers of worry and responsibility and guilt. That's what hurts the most sometimes. Not the tiredness, not the demands, but the silence around your struggle. The way people assume you're okay because you keep showing up, because your child is healthy, because you're strong. But even strong women need to be held. Even mothers who look like they have it together are sometimes falling apart inside. And what I know now looking back is that being unseen doesn't mean you're unworthy. It just means the world forgets. But that doesn't mean you have to. It's strange how one moment can change everything. Not in loud, dramatic ways, but quietly, gently, like a light flickering back on in a dark room. After that day at the pharmacy, something shifted in me. Not overnight, but slowly. I started noticing the other mothers. The ones who looked like I did, tired, overwhelmed, holding back tears behind polite smiles. And instead of just walking past them, I started doing what that woman did for me. Sometimes it was a smile. Sometimes a soft, "You're doing great," whispered in passing. Sometimes just eye contact that said, "I see you." I wasn't trying to be anyone's savior. I was just trying to reflect back what I had needed so badly. Recognition. A moment of humanity. A pause in the noise. What surprised me is how powerful those tiny connections were. A mom holding a crying baby at the park met my eyes. and I nodded with understanding. She smiled like she hadn't been seen in weeks. Another time, I helped a woman lift a stroller onto a bus. She thanked me with tears in her eyes. We didn't even speak the same language, but we didn't need to. There's something universal about the exhaustion of motherhood, and something healing about being recognized in it. And in these micro moments, I began rebuilding myself, piece by piece. Not because someone came to fix me, but because I realized I wasn't as alone as I thought. These weren't big, dramatic friendships. We didn't trade numbers or start meeting up. But they reminded me that community doesn't always have to be deep or long-lasting to be meaningful. Sometimes it's just two souls brushing against each other in the middle of chaos, saying, "I get it." And that made me think, if I could feel this seen by a stranger, what if I became that mirror for other women too? So I started speaking a little more honestly. Not just the everything's fine answers, but the messy truths. And with every honest sentence I shared, someone else opened up too. Turns out, we were all aching to be seen. And sometimes all it takes to be seen is the courage to look up and truly see someone else. It wasn't until months later that I realized something even deeper had happened that day in the pharmacy. That moment wasn't just about being seen. It was about being welcomed back into the world as a full person. Not just a mom, not just a caretaker, but me. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to take up space again. To not apologize for needing help. To not hide my messiness and shame. I started reaching out more, online mostly. There were forums, groups, comment sections filled with other moms who felt like I did. And in those spaces, I found honesty. Not the filtered version of motherhood, but the raw kind. The kind where women said, "I cried in the shower today. I miss who I used to be. I love my child more than anything, but this is hard." And suddenly I wasn't just being seen, I was mirrored. Not in pity, but in solidarity. It's hard to explain the relief that comes from hearing someone say the exact thing you were too afraid to admit out loud. It's like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. These weren't my best friends. They didn't even know my last name. But they gave me a kind of sisterhood I didn't know I needed. And little by little, I started showing up differently. With more softness toward myself. With more grace for the parts of me still healing. I no longer saw asking for help as weakness. I started seeing it as a gift to myself and to others. Because when I let others show up for me, I gave them permission to do the same. That's when I realized, this isn't just about surviving motherhood. It's about rebuilding who you are inside it. Not going back to who you were before, because that version of you doesn't exist anymore. But becoming someone new, someone deeper, someone stronger, even in her softness. And it all started with a look, with a stranger's eyes saying, "You're still here. I see you." And from that moment on, so did I. I used to think strength meant holding everything together. Never cracking, never needing, never letting anyone see the mess. But now I know. Strength can look like asking for help. Like crying in the middle of the day and letting it be okay. Like admitting, "I can't do this alone," and still showing up anyway. That day at the pharmacy taught me something that changed everything. Sometimes the most powerful moments are the quiet ones. The ones that don't fix anything on the surface, but heal something deep inside you. And once I started letting myself be human, flawed, tired, uncertain, I found myself surrounded by others doing the same. Mothers who didn't have it all figured out. Women who had been through hell and still kept going. And they didn't need me to be perfect. They just needed me to be real. That's what saved me. Not a single act, but a shift in how I saw myself. I wasn't failing. I was just carrying more than one heart was ever meant to carry alone. And even though I didn't have a village in the traditional sense, no nearby family, no partner coming home at night, I began to build a new kind of support. One made of small, meaningful moments, of honest conversations, of quiet nods between strangers who understood. And most of all, I learned to support myself in ways I hadn't before. By being kinder, by resting when I could, by forgiving myself when I snapped or stumbled. Because the truth is, motherhood doesn't need perfection. It needs presence, and a little bit of softness, especially toward ourselves. So if you're there feeling like no one sees you, Let this be your sign. I see you, and you are not alone. Some stories don't need a loud ending, just a quiet truth. Mine is this: I made it through. Not perfectly, not gracefully all the time, but I made it. And in the process, I found pieces of myself I didn't even know I'd lost. Pieces I never would have discovered if everything had gone according to plan. The look that stranger gave me, it reminded me I still existed, that I mattered, not just as a mother, but as me. And if you're somewhere in the middle of it right now, in the fog, in the weight, in the quiet ache of not being seen, please hold on. You don't need to have it all together. You just need to take the next breath, then the next, then the next. Because one day, when you least expect it, someone will look at you the way she looked at me. And you'll remember, you were never invisible, just waiting to be found again. And maybe, just maybe, that someone will be you.